If you read the resolution, you want which we mark on behalf of questions on the veterans committee, and then help you go out. Okay. If you do the resolution. I could ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, under chair comments, board met in executive session part of the meeting to discuss personnel, land acquisition and or litigation matters. Next item we have is recognition of Charles Buddy Maeyer. Is there a motion for the board to approve resolution 2023-09?
I'll make that motion.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
I will read the resolution that we have here. Resolution number 2023-09, Township of New Britain, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Resolution of the New Britain Township Board of Supervisors in recognition of Charles F. Maeyer III. Whereas Charles F. Maeyer is a graduate of Delaware Valley University and a veteran who served 6 years in the Naval Reserve and was honorably discharged. And whereas Charles has been a resident of New Britain Township since 1992. And whereas Charles Maeyer has a distinguished record of public service with New Britain Township spanning more than 30 years. And whereas Charles served on the New Britain Township Park and Rec Board from 1993 to 2022, leading and volunteering at activities such as the annual fireworks display at the Shrine of Chetahova, the Easter egg hunt, 4th of July parade, and the Santa House, as well as helping to develop North Branch and West Branch Park. Now therefore be it resolved that the supervisors of New Britain Township formally and officially recognize the public service of Charles F. Maeyer III and express their deep appreciation for all his efforts on behalf of New Britain Township. Duly adopted this 20th day of March 2023 by the Board of Supervisors of New Britain Township in lawful session duly assembled. And I believe we have a member of Buddy's family.
All going down.
I think so.
Picture. Yes. Yeah. You're back. Hang in there. Don't pick you up with your phone. Oh, we're gonna just look over the top. Yeah. I was gonna say that, but I better not. Last I would do is touch on it. And you're involved in it, so you can't. Yeah, then you're on your own.
Thank you again very much for this. Now, I also would like to ask Marcia to come up here. Representing the Veterans Committee. Marcia.
Lisa, Monica, this is a very special moment. Supervisors, thank you for approving this. On behalf of the Veterans Committee, the Parks and Recreation Committee, we thought it would be an honor to present this to you and your mom. Buddy Maeyer is, I met him coaching at the North Branch Park, and his flag flew at North Branch Park, and we thought it would be nice for us to present this flag on behalf of the Veterans Committee, Parks and Recreation. And we thank you, and father was a beautiful man, and we're gonna miss him.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Marco, very much.
Okay, we're good then. Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. That's good. I just
Our exercise.
gonna be sitting for those hours.
Yep. Sorry, Virginia.
Right?
Yeah, when I flip over the chair, I'm fine. Hang on. Nice to see the audience. Have a nice evening.
Yeah, there goes Andrew.
ever came there.
Oh. Thank you, Shell.
Okay,
John, that was your chance. He stayed around.
next item is a public hearing on ordinance 2023-0201. Update chapter 16, part 1, establishing a park and recreation board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board is aware, I was asked to draft an ordinance updating the and establishing a Parks and Recreation, updating the ordinance which establishes our Parks and Recreation Board here in the township. That was circulated to the Board of Supervisors, who approved advertisement of that ordinance at your work session meeting on March the 3rd. That was then duly advertised. My office advertised that. It appeared in the Intelligencer on Friday, March the 10th, and proof of that advertisement was sent to the township staff. In addition to that, a copy of the ordinance was also sent to the Bucks County Law Library in keeping with their records, so they have it to maintain and for people to review. That being said, I believe that all of the prerequisites for the consideration of an ordinance in Pennsylvania have been met, and therefore I would recommend the opening of a public hearing on the consideration of that ordinance.
Okay, is the motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Okay, the hearing is open.
Are there any members of the public here who would wish to make any comment or discuss the ordinance as advertised? Mr. Chair, I see no hands raised, at least not in the public forum. Mr. Walsh, is there anybody online?
I do not see anyone currently with the hand raised in the participants category, even though we have 5 there.
Mr. Jones, to the best of my knowledge and understanding, there are no public comments.
Okay.
Do the supervisors have any comments?
Sorry, I do have one comment. I was looking through the second class township code just recently, and it was going by the creation of the recreation boards. Said that their term shall be for 5 years, not 3 years. Do we have that authority to make it shorter than 5 years?
If it's in the second class township code, we probably don't have the authority.
So, sorry, are we able to change it without having to go through advertisement again?
No.
No, okay. I'm sorry, I did find it after we had done advertisement. I was looking for something else. Sorry. I went looking for something else completely differently, and I went,
You could have brought this up when we were in exec session. And that way we wouldn't even had to have the meeting. We could have just tabled it and re-advertised it. But that's fine. Now I have to table it and re-advertise it.
It was something that when we discussed it, if you recall on the 3rd, we discussed the term, or actually it was before that, we discussed the term and then
How we were.
both
gonna
the
stagger it.
length of the term and how it was staggered.
yes.
And yes,
So now if you have a 5-year term and the 5 members, then it's 1 per year. So,
Yes.
okay, so we will not take any action on this then.
Bless you.
It will be tabled and we will,
Thank you.
Well, a motion to close the hearing first.
I would need a motion to close the hearing, and then I would suggest also a motion to re-advertise the ordinance with that change.
okay, is there a motion to close?
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now is there a motion to re-advertise the motion with the 5-year term?
I'll make that.
Before we make that specific motion, may I suggest, if that's the only thing that is being changed. Can I see a copy of the code section in question, please? Thank you.
You might have had to have done that anyway.
Would re-advertise it?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have had to open the hearing.
So according to this, the amount of individuals on the board under the proposed ordinance is satisfactory. You can have 5. It's just that the term would then be 5 or until their successor is appointed. So that's the only thing that would need to be changed. That motion would be appropriate. The motion you just made.
So do we have a motion then?
think
Yes, I'll make that motion.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of redoing the advertising, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Got down what our solicitor is gonna do this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next item would be action items. I'm looking for a motion to amend the agenda to add a motion N. Which will be about farmland lease. Is there a motion to amend our agenda?
I'll make that motion.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so motion N will be added at the end of our action items. Next item will be motion to approve the meeting minutes of the Board of Supervisors for the February 27th business meeting and the March 6th workshop meeting of the New Britain Township Board of Supervisors. A motion to approve.
And, motion, make that motion.
Your second.
I'll second.
Are there any amendments or adjustments necessary? Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Next item would be motion to approve the scheduled bills
I'll make that motion.
in the amount of $427,832.30. So you have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Any discussion or amendments?
I just have one question. Matt, I'm not sure if you can answer this off the top of your head or not. The escrow release to Toll Brothers. Would that? Do you know which development that was related
See the
to?
Barkley Road.
It was
Toll
Barkley
Brothers.
Road. Okay,
All of
the final,
the individual escrows for each property.
okay.
Did we ever have to approve that in consent agenda or no? Just Stephanie and I didn't remember approving that in consent agenda.
Why would you approve the consent?
So
agenda?
the release of the remaining escrows.
These aren't,
These
these
are
aren't, the-
LNEs.
these aren't.
These are L and E's. Okay,
Right,
okay.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now our confusion is clear.
Yep.
Okay,
So are we? Okay,
Good.
we're good.
I'm good then.
Yeah.
so we got a motion and a second. Any other questions with the bills? All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Now, motion to approve consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
We'll make that motion.
For a second,
Second,
discussion on those items. Seeing none, is we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
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 Next item would be motion to approve request by CMDT Joint Sewer Authority to update the township's 537 plan and authorize township engineer to assist with the plan preparation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
With second,
Second.
any discussion? Any discussion? Don't want to say anything? Nothing?
Yeah. I was gonna talk, but I was going so well, I'm gonna keep quiet here. So is John.
Tell us the plan.
You
No,
want- you
actually-
want to talk?
No,
Oh,
I
good,
think,
you don't wanna
I
talk.
think everybody understands where we're going here. If you don't, this is the time to ask. I had a good meeting with John last week with Joe Nolan, the engineer. We had already scheduled that meeting and tried to reschedule. At the same time, Matt called me asking if I could take the lead on guiding the township through another Act 537 amendment. And I looked, and John knows this pretty well, but it was almost what, 18 back in 2005. So 18 years ago, and I assume you have John's letter in the packet, which I, based on that meeting, hopefully things went well with his meeting that Tuesday night, which it did. He's recommending to update that, and I think the township board and staff also feel that way. Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection recommends every 10 years you do this. So we're a little behind. John has started this conversation a few years ago. And it started picking up steam, and then the last couple of presentations in front of you and staff. I was pushing as well. And I think we all kind of came together at the same time here. So like we did last time in 2005, and it's in John's letter, the authority and their engineer would take the lead. My office will run point on your behalf for the township, and anything they need, Janine, myself, and Matt's team will provide, data information for them. And I think you have in your packets, or I'm not sure, maybe you don't, but I gave Matt a whole schedule, how long it took last time. Joe Nolan, the engineer, feels this hopefully will be a lot shorter. We're not looking to do a full update of the entire Act 537 plan. We're looking at planning what we want to plan for. Development right now that's in the pipeline. I know we have several commercial properties that residential developers looking at. We've had a couple commercial properties which have been converted over, so that affects their EDUs, like John mentioned last time, the capacity at the plant. So together they'll take the lead, we'll help out, and we'll see how the plant looks. That'll be Joe's job and John to evaluate the capacity at the plant, and we'll try to project future development as well in the township. Now, I'm not sure if the borough is going to get involved at this point.
We're probably going to involve.
Okay. Okay, so Matt had asked me that, I wasn't sure. So we'll have to relook at your sewer areas, and maybe what we could do is have like a monthly or quarterly update once we get going. Maybe John can attend and give an update on his end, and then I'll chime in as necessary. So, or if Joe wants to come. But this is going to take a little while. Won't take as long as the last time. But it's long overdue to update track 530. So
Can you give us a,
Expectation?
yes,
I won't know. John, I think John outlined it. They'll have a scoping meeting with DEP to see if we can do the short version, I guess.
We hope we can keep it simple.
Okay.
There's a lot of boilerplate stuff in there
Yeah.
that just keep there and just revise stuff that needs to be revised, and hopefully they can just see the common sense of that and not do this, have us do.
I mean, I'm
I'm being all over again from scratch.
yeah, it took several years the last time. Hopefully within the next year, maybe sooner. Yeah, so
The key milestone is gonna be the meeting.
yes,
Yeah.
so
Does that happen early or late in the process?
early.
Right,
Okay.
correct, yeah. Excellent.
Because that determines whether it'll be a short process. Or
That's what I was asking. Is it the thing that they rubber stamp, or is it the thing that determines how long the process
It's not kind of
takes?
which path to go on.
Yeah.
So, so that's all I have. You have the John's letter where he documented the authority did approve the expenditures to prepare that plan, have their engineer take the lead on that and be reimbursed. And then I think my stuff would be pretty minimal. Originally, Matt and I were talking about proposal, how much time was needed, but really it'll be minimal if CKS and the authority are taking the lead. So if I see a task that's going to be quite large or expensive, then obviously I'll run that through Matt and we'll deal with it then. So.
Any other questions?
When do we have to start having the conversation about our sewer planning zones?
Our
Ours, as in like the transition area.
depending on what DEP
versus-
says, then John and Joe, that's why I was set up the meeting to get there.
Part of it.
Yes, that's the big part of
We
it.
need to communicate that to Craig, so we get at a meeting, we can know what you're looking at.
Okay,
That's why I was reaching out to John at the same time other people were talking, because I wanted his idea of what he's looking at, so I could kind of update the board on what I thought needed to be done. So now it's all coming together under one document.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I have a motion to approve purchase of body worn cameras for the police department.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second.
Second,
Any questions we have of the chief? Which is a budgeted item for this coming year, so.
Yes, and then it's also offset by a matching grant for the PCCD. And for the next item, I'll go into more detail.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item, motion to approve the purchase of in-car cameras.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay. You're up again, chief.
All right, thank you. So we had some development late. Well, after the last board of supervisors meeting where we were awarded an $80,000 grant through PCCD grant, through PCCD, to purchase in-car cameras and Cradle Point modems. The Cradle Point modems are something that's necessary for the police cars, and actually we started installing in the new cars in order to help us increase our connectivity through wireless connectivity. It's 4G, LTE, and helps the officers better communicate through the computer system. Also to connect to other law enforcement platforms that they need while they're out there doing their job, including our records management system. So before the board tonight, we contacted Axon, who's the preferred volume 1 camera that we recommended. An in-car camera system. The whole idea is for it to be from the same company as the volume 1 camera, so that they can easily communicate with each other. Therefore, we contacted Axon to get an updated quote, because we did get a quote from them as we were going through the grant submission process. And when they gave us a new quote, we found that it was a bit higher than the original quote that they quoted us last year. I didn't feel comfortable or confident that we could sustain that. And I did not want to present that to the board as it was, and that was communicated to Axon. And they came back, and with the body worn cameras, they reduced it by 20%. And then they honored the pricing that they originally quoted us in 2022. As long as we can enter into a service agreement with them by the end of this month. It's a substantial savings. The grant will offset the first 2 years of the service agreement. Will upfront all the cost of the equipment, to include the cradle points, and therefore reducing the cost that the township will have the last 3 years of the contract. This is also money that is programmed into our current budget. 2023, we asked for $19,000 for body worn and in-car camera system. So we have the money in the budget to do the body worn cameras, obviously, and there'll be no impact to budget the first 2 years for the in-car cameras. Another funding source that we have for this in future is that we actually, for the purchase of a new vehicle, have included the cost of the actual in-car camera. So therefore, when we start talking capital improvement plan in the next few weeks, we'll probably be evaluating how much money we're requesting for a vehicle and actually reducing that by a few $1,000s.
Great. Other questions?
no.
Any public questions? Go ahead, check.
None at this time.
Oh, we have a motion in a second. No further questions. All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next time we have motion to approve the 2023-24 road program. For a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
For a second,
Second,
discussion.
I note that there's a couple additional items on this 2023 summary than were originally presented. There was Naomi and Farview, and now we've added Maple and Greenwood. Is this being put out to bid, or are we doing this in-house?
This would be the part that would be put out to bid.
Okay.
so who's talking about this to us?
We are going to give you a crash course, and I just, after the last board meeting, we've talked about the road program. You've heard me talk about using data to create a road paving plan for the entire township. We are not at the point where we are ready to roll that out yet. We're still working on conflating the data that we received from the tech firm for surface condition, but we didn't want to wait any longer for this year. I just don't think we didn't want to wait anymore. And so we developed this year's road program along with next year's as a way for building a foundation for when we use data that we're using from the company that we contracted with. That'll just plug and play into this in future years. So this year, given that we have a resolution that is on the books that states that we are to notify residents of any sidewalks, curbs and sidewalks in the event of road paving within 12 months, we did not recommend putting any of those roads that would have curbs and sidewalk repairs on 2023, since we would be in violation of a resolution. And so that's why we're recommending the adoption of a 2-year road program. This first year in 2023 are roads that do not have curbs and sidewalks. And so therefore, the resolution will not be in play. The roads that we are recommending for 2024 do have curbs and sidewalks, and that has been forwarded to the board for your review. And we're confident that we will have enough time, if the board considers it and approves it and move forward with this, that we will have enough time to notify those residents of those repairs. Thankfully, for Mr. Walsh's memo, we've got enough money in our liquid fuels fund to fund both of the 2023 and 2024 road program. And what's also included in the 2024 road program is ADA ramps. And so liquid fuels is very specific on what you can and cannot use that money for. And we can't use that for curbs and sidewalks, but we can use that for ADA ramps, and has been the past practice of this municipality. And anytime where we do road paving, that the township pays for the ADA ramps, since they are quite costly. So that's a summary, and either Mike or I would be happy to answer any further questions the board may have.
What would be the timeline to do the inspections for the curb sidewalks?
The goal would be to immediately meet with Mr. Cressman, Public Works Superintendent, to discuss with him a timeline to get that information down, so that we can then compile it and make sure we get letters out. I believe we have till the end of August. If we go by the plan that we laid out, with it being paid in August, as long as we get that information out to our residents before the end of August, I believe we will hit those. Again, the goal would probably be to do that well before then. I'd like to have the notifications out by the end of June, beginning of July, to make sure we're not even close to that 12-month window.
So normally pavings later in the summer, early fall.
It would be to pave before school starts.
Well, end of September.
And again, the goal would be,
Okay.
if this is approved, this would give us that, as the board discussed last meeting, the ability to start planning for this in December and having a bid ready to go out in January, so that we can start getting on that a different cycle than we have been in the past, which is, and then we can much better, it'll be much easier for us to plan with notifications too in the future, where we're going to be doing this and when, because then we can put in the contract specific time frames for the contractor to come out.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll open my mouth. In consideration of this and knowing the expense of it, my feeling would be, I think it might be beneficial for the township to do the curb repairs as part of the road repairs. Now, in looking over the prices that they gave us, the total cost of the curbs, again, some of this is back in 2020 when they did the last review. Total cost for doing the curbs would be $80,000. Asking the homeowners to do the sidewalks and their aprons coming into their driveways, I think is a definite that we should be asking them to do that. The curbs are more of a problematic situation because the only way the curbs get damaged is if a homeowner is really dumb and drives their 3/4 ton truck over a curb and really bangs the heck out of it, or over 20 years of plowing, the township inadvertently does some damage to curbs. So my feeling is that we should find a way as part of our 2024 budget to cover that $80,000. Now, in talking with Mike this afternoon, there's only really $50,000 worth of cost that's associated with right in front of a homeowner's property. There's approximately $30,000 of additional expense for the curbs that is either in common ground or in front of basins, or something to that effect. So it's not directly in front of a homeowner's property. So that would be my thoughts. And
So wait, so you're recommending towns to pay for all curves or just curbs in front of homeowners?
Can I add something to what you
Properties.
said, Bill, as well?
Okay.
Please, part of that is also, there's curbs associated with the ADA ramps that are also part of that $30,000, which. As a staff, we'd be able to shift that cost toward the liquid fuels. That's, so roughly what the township's looking at is we need about $54,000 in general fund dollars to cover the residents' portion of the curbing for next year is the estimated amount.
Let me ask a question. In the past, have we required the residents to cover the entire cost of sidewalks and curbs?
yes, in 1 year or the 2 years we actually did it.
So now you're suggesting that we not do that, that the township eat the cost of some of that, but I'll give you a third reason, and this is directly from my neighborhood. The curbs were ruined during construction. And the contractor was allowed to
Skim coat.
ice over, as I call it, like icing a cake to fix any imperfections, which of course does not stick, and of course it's all fallen off. So the original owners bought something that was damaged already, and the builder was allowed to get away with that in past years. It's going back to 89. Current engineer not included in that, but that is going to be a big problem in my neighborhood, because that was done in numerous places. So I would suggest that we need to figure out a policy that's going to apply across the board and not just for
The streets were fine.
2024 or 2020. There has to be we have to treat the residents equally.
So we'd have to amend the ordinance. To
The
remove,
resolution.
or whatever it was, resolution ordinance,
I would recommend passing a new resolution.
removing
Replace the
curbs.
existing one.
Or
But
however you wanna,
I didn't get clarification, Bill. Were you talking about all curbs or just curbs in front of homeowners? Like if there's an HOA, no.
Yeah, I mean, that.
If it's in front of a basin, or is the HOA paying for that, or are we covering all costs?
I was saying initially that we were covering all costs, $80,000.
Okay.
But can you guarantee it's only $80,000?
Well-
4 years ago,
I'm based on the information that I have.
yeah,
So if it's 85 or it's 90,000, they'll know that when they come back with, they'll have a better idea when they do the field inspection.
Cynthia, but as you start building your program, and you start actually getting to where Matt wants to go, like looking, but you'll start looking at what intersections need to do it, because the ADA ramp is gonna have some soft costs. I think, well, Matt and I did speak today. I think he'd have us design them like I do other townships where, and then we look at what curb is nearby, and it's silly to do a ramp and then leave a little section and there's a big gap or a patch or icing. So we would do all that, but that drives up the cost. So you try to see how much funding's coming and you do a balancing act of which roads need to be paved. And like you're doing this year, Ryan decided not to do anything with curb or sidewalks. That saves you money. So next year, what sometimes do is, okay, now we're going to do more ramps and more curbing. Then the next year, we're going to try to, look at roads without curbs. So each year, the staff could look at that. You start planning for that. It gets pretty routine after a while. Then eventually you're gonna start repeating yourself, and the curbs won't need to be fixed again, and the ramps won't need to be fixed again. But the concrete work, and I know Matt knows, is quite expensive, and the AD ramps are really expensive. We do a survey, then design, and then we stake it out, and then the contractor comes in. That's the full blown way. Or you cross your fingers and hope the contractor hires someone to do it, which I believe Matt doesn't want to do it that way, and I don't recommend you do it that way. But you can look at that each year, because I agree with the patching, that will meet PennDOT standards. So
It will or will not?
it will in certain situations, and this is what had happened. The engineer in Percy Borough mentioned to me that they'll get some of that, and then it doesn't last as long, but it meets current standards, and that's, if that's the type of repair they have. But next door, there's 20 feet of curb that needs to be removed. They get away with just patching it, where if you do it all one time and it wasn't individual property owners, you would do the whole thing.
I do have a question. You're saying that they came back and did a skim coat?
Yeah.
All right, now, how soon after the curb was put in did they do that? Within 18 months or 2 years or 3 years?
I don't think it was, some of those places were started in 86. I didn't move up here till 92, but I know that even after I was here, somebody was skim coating some of the curbs. Cause I remember seeing them do it, thinking that's polluted.
Because
Better.
the materials they're using for skim coating have gotten much,
Yes, they
have. Oh, yeah.
much better.
They have.
And much better
Yeah.
resiliency.
Yeah, this stuff just cracked, and you've got curbs that basically
yeah.
don't even exist anymore because they're so.
We
worn
know
away.
that one well. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
And I guess somewhere compromise in between that would be, we pay part of it and the homeowner pays part of it.
And it still becomes a nightmare.
Yeah,
I mean,
because then what you have to do is you either have to float a loan and lien the property, or they have to find financing somewhere else, which is why the resolution giving them 12 to 14 months was passed in the first place.
I agree.
I can say from my experience doing it once, having to have different levels with different homeowners, trying to track them down, billing them monthly. We had all kinds of different rates the way we did it. Some sort of standard way to streamline what the process is. Would probably be the best, at least from.
The issue is you're still gonna have homeowners that will refuse to do their sidewalks, so we'll have to do the sidewalks and lien their property anyway, so.
That's true, but at least we won't have the curb situation. I'm
Right.
afraid that our critical situation is we have to make sure that the curbs are done before they come in to do the paving. Because you certainly don't want to be tearing out the paving right after you had it done.
Yeah,
because
you have
like
to,
the curb.
the way it's poured, the
So
way.
that
curbs
was the
are
idea
poured.
of giving them 12 months ahead of time, which is fine, but I would much rather, if a curb has to be replaced, I'd much rather see our contractor doing it. Knowing that it's gonna be done right, or else we're gonna hold them feet over the fire. Than to have Joe Blow, who just started a concrete business last year. And doesn't use the right 3,500 pound concrete mix to do it.
And wouldn't there be greater costs savings by having one contractor do the whole lot? Could we not?
Yeah.
Could we not say this will be the contractor, this will be the best price? And give them the
It
bill?
doesn't.
Yeah, well,
So
We
that's,
don't have-
they'll
so
get the bid.
it won't go that way. The 5 property owners in a row will get together and get Joe's whatever Smith,
Mhm.
and he'll give a really good deal because his 2 sons need some work done, and you're gonna get, because you can't control who they hire.
But why can't we say we're going to hire them and bill the homeowner?
Because it
They
is
have
their
the right,
property. They
it's
have a
their
right to-
property, they have a right.
If we're telling them it has to be replaced, they have a right to replace it
So
with the contractor they're choosing.
Okay.
I explained the one version of this, Percy Borough. They notify the residents in January. Of which ones are gonna get they need to replace their curb, but they bid it out, assuming nobody's gonna the residents aren't gonna replace it. So and this is where the contractor has an issue. If everybody says, oh, we'll do it, now you got a bid that's off, you might have issues, but typically it's like 60-70%. So they say, here's our price, here's the contractor. You can pay us that or go hire someone else. But you have, they give them no more than 6 months, 3 to 6 months to get it done. And they have to have it done in July or June. And then if not, the township or borough contractor comes through, does it, and then they pay in August. They go bam, bam, right in a row. So they give like 6 months notice. They do a payment plan of 1 year, but they allow you to use that contractor. But some of the issue is now more and more people to save money are using their finding, and next, you know, the bids are so off, because if you have, now you're not going to have as much curb work, but you could affect the pricing by removing 70% of the bid for concrete work, because all the residents decided to do it. So that they warned me that's an issue too. But that method is acceptable, where you have a contractor. You know, legally you got to watch how much the contract changes when you go out to bid. They bid on a certain amount of work, and now you're reducing it by 70%.
I don't feel like I have enough information or thought to decide on that kind of proposition at the moment. Either way,
And all I can say is until we do those inspections, I'm not gonna have more
Yes.
finite details
Yeah.
on that. As Matt and I have talked, there is some conversation about when we start creating this plan, using multiple years when we bid, that way you can sort of see prices moving forward. But again, that wouldn't happen until we get this approved out to bid. I believe the resolution could be changed at a later date, and we can.
I was gonna say, do we have to address it now? Can we
I don't-
do the inspections first and see how much we're talking about, and then?
We can continue moving forward with this, and that can always be a conversation as budget time when we have a better idea of prices.
Can you email out the resolution concerning this?
Did the other
You
day.
did.
You did.
Have it, yeah.
it's in part of it.
It's in part of this, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I do have one question about one of the roads, the Britton Wood Circle. They have a very huge circle in the middle. Who pays for the curb around that circle? The residents or us?
Normally, that would be a homeowners association, I would think.
If they have an HOA, some of those curbs, I have a separate sheet where I do where there's a number of curbs that I have a question with, the next to a basin or something like that. That would be, I just, at the time, didn't know
We
if
don't-
they HOA or us or what, so.
Yep.
But those costs are included in the $80,000.
Well, yeah, and that's one of those instances where if there's homes on the circle, and then part of the circle is the HOA, if we don't pay for all of it and get one contractor to do it, you're gonna have 3 different contractors doing a circle. Which is a problem. Yeah. It's like all or nothing.
Without, I don't want to, like, I know, because Matt and I were like, how sideways is going to go. I did. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add, again, we're just approving these things. That doesn't mean that the board cannot, once we have more information, change these
Yeah.
plans, that we can modify these plans. They're meant to be changed. This is just to give us direction to the staff, that we can start going down to make sure we have we're meeting the board's expectations of getting the bid out sooner. We have a road program this year and next year to start building on. When we get the cost things, we can have conversations about moving roads around if it needs to be. Those things can happen. This right now is to establish that framework moving forward for the next 2 years as we get that data ready.
the notice of the potential homeowners can go out later. Your ordinance requires 12 to 14 months, as long as if you're assuming that you're gonna do the curb work in July of next year or something like that. So
Yeah, in fact, I went around and polled a bunch, Matt and I spoke, and I think it was a week ago, so I talked to a bunch of the engineers in our office, everybody does it different. I told Matt today, it's about a third, a third, and a third. A third of the townships do nothing. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, my other big account, everybody knows, I do ramps every year. We do a couple $1 million of paving. We're doing 8 miles this year, 50 ramps, and we're not touching curb. And then I realized, went back, like, we haven't touched curb for 15 years. I've been there. Then I checked and they don't do the curbs. The public works fixes, it just keeps fixing little spots here and there, because most of the time it's the plow, most of the time it's, and this is where Bill is right. There's very few times where the property owner is causing a problem. However, second class township code does say that, as Matt said, we don't have it's like 2/3 of the township paying for 1/3 of the township that has the curbs, where Ben Salem's, Bristol's, Warminster's, they have all, Perksy Borough, Hatboro. But I have other townships where they're, and again, Montgomery Township, they have a lot more money, they pay for everything. They don't bother with the residents, they just go and they do repairs along the way. It seems like most don't fix the curbs in a large scale program. In fact, I haven't, you only did it twice, I think, in the 25 years I've been here, 2 years. And it was a night, there's a lot of screaming.
We only did it then because the roads
It was so,
needed to be.
it was so bad.
done.
Yeah.
Right.
And part of it was, it wasn't, the roads weren't done the right way. They weren't milled. Okay, and next thing you lost all your reveal, and whose fault is that? The resident or you guys? It was you guys. So I'm on the side of fixing the curb and you paying for it. But I am very aware of the cost of Matt mentioned today and others that you can't always, afford to do that. Now, I hear 50,000, I'm like, that's not a big deal at the whole grand scheme of things. But next, a couple of years from now, it might be 150,000. Now you gotta look at spreading that out, and that's what we do.
That's the thing. I mean,
Spread it out, and
you take like Britain Circle, right? Relatively long cul-de-sac with not that many homes in there, right? But then you take a community like the Highlands.
Yeah.
Where you have private roads, but then you have Highland Drive Manor Schoolhouse. Who repairs the curbs on Highland Drive? The homeowners association?
so all you need, I mean,
So,
sometimes you have all private developments, it's the HOA that takes care of it. It's no different.
And it's the same thing now, down in your development, so if you have curbs,
You have no curbs.
right?
Yeah.
But now across the street, they have curbs and sidewalks. Correct?
They do. Mhm.
Are they
So-
part of your HOA?
No.
Are they a separate HOA?
Mhm.
So, I mean, yes, you may use your logic that you're saying that vast majority of the township doesn't have curbs, right? But that's also our most low density, right? Whereas you take other sections of the township that have high density, and that's where your curbs are, in most cases.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we're on the same page, I think Matt and I are as well. It's the cost then of, I didn't have the numbers until I saw tonight, but
Okay, well,
To be determined.
I guess the question is, do we want to go ahead with the road program at this point?
Yeah.
And we just hold off on notification at this point until we do come to some final decision?
I think this will trigger the inspection process. that
Yes.
needs to
Mhm.
happen. And then
It
once we
needs
do
to
that,
happen one way or another. so.
once we do that inspection process, we'll have better numbers for you. And then we can have a further discussion on what we do with curbs. And the other thing that you can consider also in talking to our Public Works Department, that if this is, this is gonna be a shift in how we go about processing things. If we want to begin to take ownership, if the township wants to take ownership of the curbs, we can also do things in-house. Don't look past that too. And we can do things differently. It doesn't have to be all brand new spanking new curbs. If the curb is still functional, if it's got the right reveal, if it's working with stormwater, it might not look nice. But it could pass and we could actually do smaller scale things in-house to even suppress those costs lower. So just another thing to consider as we continue having this conversation about how we go about dealing with the curbs.
One other thing to consider, if you look at your resolution 2016-27, I got unanimous 100% feedback from the engineers in the office that 12 months is way too long. I mean, and I think why that was done was to give them plenty of time to save, and then we got your payment plan. So pretty much everybody said 6 months and then do a 1-year payment plan. If you do the payment plan, I know that's not something everybody likes to do, but you got 18 months.
I think the history on the 12 months was the development where the curbs were taking place was a skewed older, where people were on a significantly tighter
it was.
budget
It
and
was,
they needed
yeah.
to have a
Yeah.
long time to be able to budget $30,000 in curbs and sidewalks. So
That's a chunk of change.
Mhm.
if you had some of the corner lots in Brittany Farms,
Yeah.
they had a lot of curbs and
Yeah, the
sidewalks.
corner lots.
There's no sidewalk.
Or no sidewalks, but curbs, yeah, curbing,
And part of the problem in Brittany Farms was created by the township,
right.
because we kept putting an inch and a half of asphalt down
Never
every
milled it
time we
once.
repaved it. And of course, there are no curbs in the deal. You keep paving them up. So anyway, all right, so we have a motion and a second to go ahead with the road program as it now stands. Any further questions? All in favor of approving as stands right now, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And just a quick question for Matt, when do you think you'll actually be able to incorporate robotics into all of this?
Yeah, so Ryan Gaiman, our in-house GISer is, I think, about halfway through conflating all of the point data to linear features and getting it to match our road centerline files. And so I'm hoping in a month or two, I'll be able to show you the plan. It's a really effective graphic tool to see all of the roads ranked amongst each other and put that up on the screen and present what that plan is. And then we use that data to then feed into future years. And the living, breathing document of the road paving plan is that when we do these improvements, we'll then plug that data into the GIS. And so then they'll be recategorized, that same map, but they'll be in the best shape because we just did, the milling and overlay.
All right, very cool.
All right, on to our next item, motion to award the 2023-2024 Bucks County Consortium bid materials. Materials bid. There a motion?
I'll make that motion.
For a second.
Second,
Any questions, discussion? Mike, getting.
This is all Mike. As you sort of guessed, the cost of blacktop has gone up significantly again since last year's bid. I know we had a number of issues with the consortium with prices changing and going back and forth, so we took some steps to to modify the bid to kind of hopefully take that loophole out for some of the quarries and stuff that they were doing that last year with us. So the prices stay more consistent. Again, Ryan usually goes through these and we apply a mileage for how far we have to drive and add that on to the cost of the bids to determine which is the lowest bidder to make sure, even though someone may be lower, if we have to drive 25 miles to them and there's someone 2 miles away, we can factor that in and make sure we're not burning through fuel and things like that. So that's a part of it. But otherwise, everything's pretty straightforward as far as Ryan said in the email. I believe it was Eureka for the blacktop and Plumstead for the stone.
Oh, your motion and second, are there any questions? I think.
Was there any significant reduction in the number of companies that participated with the consortium?
Actually, this year we had a significant turnout compared to last year's because we also added other materials. The consortium members added other materials like concretes and C-tops to the bid. So we had concrete companies actually this year, and we still had a very good turnout for asphalt and other stuff.
So what was
I think we had like 11 or 12 bids.
so then for concrete, did the other townships that were looking at concrete, were they satisfied with the prices or were they surprised?
So really it was only Northampton and they were asking for 55 6-foot seat. I mean, they were going real large quantities, whereas
Okay.
Ryan and I talked and we added a couple for us, just in case Ryan got the permission, it looked good for us that we could do it, but we don't really spend enough on them, where Ryan only has $10,000 budgeted a year for C-tops.
Mhm.
So if Ryan we didn't get a really good price, we're with bidding requirements, we're still fine to just go out on our own and get those, because we don't spend more than $10,000.
Okay.
Okay. So we have motion and second. All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the waiver of structures within the proposed fireworks display area.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that one.
Any discussion? Mr. Teschner is happy.
Yes, he is.
Everybody else happy?
So I just want to add that this is the first step to this process. It has been communicated to the Tricentennial Committee that while the board is waiving the liability to those structures, they still need to go from that plan that's a circle that you all have in front of you and expand that out to show the whole park to include things such as parking, pedestrian, where the public will be sitting to watch, some traffic flow information, where they believe safety personnel should be, how many, and then it's been communicated to them. Once we have that plan, we will staff will set up a meeting with the chief of police, EMS, fire, our emergency management coordinator, park and rec, everybody that's relevant to that, have one final meeting to really go over that plan. To give the chief an opportunity to weigh in whether he believes they've staffed it properly based off his experience with these type of events, so that we can finalize that and then hopefully then bring that final plan in front of the board for approval.
The issue is wrangling them into actually putting it on the piece of paper. Here's hoping, fingers crossed. Pray for us on Tuesday night or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesday night, yeah.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, motion to approve the quote from Master Telecom for an updated phone system. And this would be a phone system for the whole building.
Correct, it would be for all departments.
All departments.
I'll make that motion.
Your second.
Second,
Any discussion?
Who actually looked into this for the township and purchasing and bids?
So Sean McGuire and I, Detective McGuire and I have been working on this together.
Okay,
We went to who our current phone is, and we've gone to Comcast, and we've gone to Verizon. This company through Verizon. Detective McGuire did a great job with this. Part of this deal is we're getting all the devices for free. They're all included, so we're getting 30 phones. I think the only one we have to pay for is a wireless handset that we're getting for downstairs. But the faxes are free, everything is free. The wonderful thing about this system, it's gonna really modernize the way we can do things. Each phone that we're ordering comes with an app for staff to use on their phone. So if we have, knock on wood, pandemic again, we can shift to working from home flawlessly and still look like we're working from the office and not have some of the issues we had previously. This comes in well under budget as well. I think we had about $17,500 in the budget for this, and this is coming in around $10,400 ish in that area. So, I mean, I think Sean McGuire did a great job with this, and I really think it will modernize how we're dealing with our residents and the public, helping them.
so once we have this in, we are not gonna see 6 different bills from 6 different providers for cell phones and this phones and.
So what's with this is Sean is also working to switch everyone to Verizon internet. We are getting rid of all cable. Because with the ability to stream now and stuff, we can put a device on it. Public Works is here during a snowstorm, they can have something that streams the same stuff. That's what chief and them are doing downstairs. So we're moving away from that and trying to combine everybody's stuff under Verizon as well.
I was just a little confused when I saw the memo and it was from Detective McGuire. Just was, huh? Okay,
Yeah, he has become our township IT person.
okay.
He's our IT point person. He's really good with the IT stuff. He's interested in it and working with chief and chief's recommendation. Sean is our new IT point person for the township.
So even if it's not a pandemic, good for a hurricane too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll enable it to have direct extension
Yeah.
dialing. It's good. Thank you.
It'll last 5 years, but that's another point. All right, so we have motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item, motion to authorize cancellation of the May 1st 2023, lift up me at 10 o'clock. It's a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Two seconds.
Second,
So if I could take the next two motions since they are related. The township has received two applications for a conditional use hearing. One of which is a relatively minor conditional use application that will be a part of the work session meeting in April that the board will hear. The second is the conditional use application is a little more involved. That has to do with the toll project behind the new Wawa. And we did not, as staff did not believe it would be appropriate to have a conditional use hearing at a 10 a.m. meeting and would like an evening meeting. The other thing that we considered was that this meeting on the first is the week directly after PSATs when we're all going to be out. And so that would enable staff, it'll free up time for staff to not feel crunched with trying to come up with a full agenda for May 1st. And so our recommendation to the board is to consider canceling the May 1st work session meeting at 10 a.m. And then the next motion that follows is to authorize staff to advertise a new meeting on the same date at 7 p.m. And that will only just be for the conditional use hearing. Therefore, if we keep it specific, it will free staff time up post PSATs and we could be a lot more efficient.
Okay. Any other questions, reference the motion on the floor? All in
Yeah.
favor of approving canceling the one, signify by saying aye.
aye,
Next one goes along with it is your motion to authorize advertising for special meeting of Board of Supervisors for Monday, May 3rd, 7 p.m. for an additional use hearing.
So much.
There's a second.
second,
Any further discussion on that?
And we have we have verified with the applicant that they are available at that time on that day also.
Okay. All right, we have motion and a second. All those in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion M, adopt ordinance 230201, update chapter 16, part 1, establishing a parking and recreation board,
we're taking.
which we are tabling at this point.
Just change adopt the table.
Pardon?
You
Just
need a
change the
motion
motion
to table.
from adopt the table.
I'll make the motion to
Table?
Table or.
table, or do I have to make a motion to amend to
You
table?
can, you can make a motion to table that
I make a motion to table that motion.
pending the advertisement as previously authorized.
A second,
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 aye,
And the newly added motion N. Advertised agenda. 2023-24 farmland lease bid package and authorize township manager to advertise the bid package. There's a motion.
make that motion,
There's a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
If I could just add some clarity to that. Thank you to the board for considering this evening. This is a process that I developed for the township to be in a position to publicly accept bids for 2 parcels of land that are township owned that are currently actively farmed. The township has had relationships with farmers in the past, and this is moving forward with the board's wishes to formalize those relationships and sets in place a public bid process, which would then result in the Board of Supervisors considering a lease for approval at the April 17th business meeting. And so the dates that I have penciled in, if the board moves forward with this evening, I would have these bids due at noon on Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. And they would then be in front of the board for consideration at the business meeting on April 17th, 2023.
So we have a motion and a second. Any questions reference that schedule? All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
aye,
No other motions? We can get down to information items. And you're up, sir.
Thank you. Hang on.
Too long.
So I just wanted to say, planning is certainly well underway, as your supervisors know, for the tricentennial committee, and I just wanted to publicly thank the committee and all that they have been doing. There's a lot of energy. It's, I'm really excited with what's happening and where they're moving. I just wanted to publicly thank everybody who is donating their time on that committee, so thank you. Staff began working on the first update to the 5-year capital improvement plan this past week. And we'll be working on updating the master inventory list of capital projects in the next couple of weeks. And a meeting of the capital planning committee will be scheduled soon thereafter. So please be on the lookout for an email from me, those who are on the capital planning committee. I just wanted to give a couple of reminders for upcoming April events. Don't forget the Easter egg hunt is scheduled for 10 a.m. on March 25th. And rain date April 1st.
There's a rumble there.
Promising.
Oh,
Oh, they are.
Friday
Yeah.
and Saturday.
Yeah,
Rain date April 1st.
April Fool's Day, yeah.
Photos of the Easter Bunny start at 9:30 a.m. His and Her Bingo is scheduled for 7 p.m. on April 21st. Doors open at 6 p.m. This event is hosted by the New Britain Township Veterans Committee and benefits Veterans Park. I would like to specifically thank the Township Solicitor, Begley, Carlin, and Mandio for sponsoring the event. Thank you. Details for both upcoming events can be found on the NBT website and social media for both the Easter egg hunt and His and Her Bingo. And lastly, planning is underway for the tri-municipal 4th of July parade. So
Yay.
just saying, saw the first email come through from Christine Nicholas about getting everybody's heads around the parade. And that concludes my report.
We are going to discuss environmental advisory committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that was my report. And so there's these two other things, yeah, right?
you want to jump in there?
Do you want me to take over that one?
So advisory committee resolution.
We're only discussing the information, so we'll need to clarify.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Please continue. I'll jump in. So the resolution establishing environmental advisory committee has been prepared. It's since been brought to my attention by Supervisor McCabe. Thank you. That the EAC must be established by ordinance and not resolution. So it still is worth discussing the provisions that you have in front of you, and then we'll simply meld that into an ordinance that you can consider for advertisement at your next meeting.
So what changed in the 17 years since the original one was made as a resolution?
Probably was not done correctly back then.
I would guess that's probably true. I'd have to look at the statute to see if it was amended to add that in between, but I would suggest it probably wasn't.
Gotcha.
Back to
Looks like
the land
this-
preservation EAC, could that have swayed it?
That was also a portion of it. The original resolution that New Britain Township has in the books creates a land preservation EAC,
Right,
which deals with a bunch of issues that are typically handled by the Board of Supervisors. So that's one of the reasons why it was limited in the resolution that's in front of you. And it just is for an EAC.
I think that's what, if I recall, you weren't gonna go that, give it all the teeth, but enough to
right.
kind of keep things, you know.
This statute was passed in 1998.
I haven't looked at it to tell you.
And I will state that current counsel solicitor was not the solicitor at the time, so we're learning as we go along here. But anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, so basically, Bill, when Bill and Matt and I had breakfast a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the land preservation aspect of it, and this is a two-part statement. So I'm going to start with the EAC first. So basically what I did is I found an old copy of the EAC, and with Sean's help, basically took all of the references to land preservation out of it and made it into a document that deals solely with the EAC aspect. And Sean actually made a couple of adjustments to it that made it mirror our park and rec ordinance, I think on a couple of the different in section 7, and I mirrored the park and rec ordinance in terms of the members being 5, and then the whole term thing that was the same term that was in there before, and I could care less. We can let everybody serve for 15 years, but.
The statute does say it's a 3-year term.
Yes.
Okay, so then that can
But
be.
we don't even have to
adjusted.
discuss it because the statute tells us what we have to
Right.
do.
So if we wanted to adjust it to a 3-year term and make it an ordinance and, you know, whatnot, it's up to everybody else then, if that's how they want to see it proceed as an ordinance to be advertised, at the next, for us to make a motion to advertise at our next business meeting. So that's the EAC aspect of it.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask why land preservation was taken all
because of the statement that Sean just made. It's been, you know, it's been strongly pointed out that land preservation is a power given to the Board of Supervisors. They should take it seriously. So the plan or the idea that Matt and Bill and I came up with at breakfast that we were going to present at our last meeting, but we kind of had a little more going on then, was that we wanted to create a supervisor committee consisting of 2 supervisors and a member of the public to sit on a committee, what like a land preservation committee or an open space committee that would spearhead all, you know, all the energy that they need to search out any open space that's left in the township to preserve. You want to serve on that?
I might, if I get over whatever I've had for 2 weeks. Okay, I understand that. I've also gone through some of the documentation that came from the
previous.
board. They did a lot of work and frankly, they're not the ones that decide what to preserve. That obviously that's the supervisors, but they did a lot of work in identifying parcels and doing all that kind of grunt work, which
Yes, we did. Thank you very much.
were you on that
I
committee?
was on that.
I didn't see your name yet, so maybe I didn't get down far enough. So actually, I will give you a copy of the statute and you will see what the statute says that their job is, but ultimately, of course, it's up to the supervisors to do that. But the other committee did do a lot of work. And had a list and had things identified. I do think at one point I saw the list go by, but I never knew that all this other work had been done. So
You know, we actually analyzed, you know, is that a good property, bad property?
Yeah,
You
there
know,
was
steep slopes,
yeah.
you know, all those sort of things.
what kind of waterways ran through it, if it even warranted being preserved because it was bisected by, you know, some kind of feature that would prevent
Already preserved.
development.
So,
well, as we had discussed and as I've been saying for 3 years or so, we need to do this. Every other township in this county has something like this. And it's also a jumping off point for applying for grants. Which is something we haven't been able to take advantage of because we haven't had this in place since whenever it dissolved, which I haven't found that out yet, but
I think
that's a
in
great.
Well, I think
step.
12, maybe.
yeah, the situation really came down to, we were looking for properties to preserve one way or another. We weren't necessarily thinking about, well, how are we going to take care of these properties once we preserved them or once we've taken them over? So I think that's where we're now at the point of, okay, these are properties we want to preserve. Let's go after them with this land preservation committee. But we also need to, at the same time, what do we want to do with these properties that we have control of? We want to just leave them fallow, or do we want to do certain things on them? Okay.
Sure. So EAC would be looking into that and doing things. The only question or issue I had with the resolution that was drafted by Greg is that there's something. Authority, minutes, meetings, something about they're allowed to advertise any
Park and Rec Board?
Something about they're allowed to advertise any environmental issues of which they are aware, which I thought was a rather weird way of, this is Park and Rec, no wonder I'm not finding it. But anyway, I'll bring that up later. We don't have to discuss that right now. The wording was just a tad bit.
Yep, so section 7 for me, I would like to add in number C that the committee shall maintain information on land, both public and private. Hear me out on this, of environmental significance located in the township, because we do have some private basins that an EAC may be able to help converse with them to say, maybe you should either take out all the calorie pear trees. So I'd like to put in that they can maintain information both on public and private lands. Doesn't mean they get to do anything on them, but at least have that, see the significance, because that's what we want to do. We want to have the environment and environmental aspects of our whole township, not just the public lands, but also help private homeowners, business owners, because they'll be part of our environment.
So the way I would read that is when it just says on land, it's not specifying public land, it's just specifying land. So I don't think it excludes private land.
Making it
Okay.
clear.
Can we do that legally, Sean?
I think I need to know more about what you're, if you're just gonna look to track.
In the statute. Sorry.
Oh, all right.
Keep an
So,
index of all open areas publicly and privately owned, including flood-prone areas, swamps, and other unique natural areas.
Yeah.
So that's why I brought it
But
up.
that's an index. That's not you. What you said is that you wanted to reach out and help them with that. That's not.
No, I'm saying all this says is maintain information. So at that point, then that would be something, if they came to us and said, we feel like we should, we're maintaining our basins. Would it not be helpful to the township for us to reach out to those private owners and say, would you like to help with the environment of the township and work on that?
But that power is not in that statute. It's just.
No. But I'm just saying, shall maintain information on both private and public. Then it's up to us if we do anything with that information.
so when are we establishing this?
I'm not finding anything related to what you're talking about.
Supervisor,
Advertising anything?
Yeah, there's nothing about advertising in this.
what are you looking at? The resolution?
Yeah.
It's on Steve.
No, what you
Your
were
thing.
referring
What
to.
are you referring to?
I did also have another thing right at the very top where it says whereas Article 19 of the second class township code. To me in the book, that means it talks about police.
I don't know. Like I said, I just literally,
That was probably taken from the old.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't, I literally only took out anything that had to do with land preservation.
Let's have this looked over and we can discuss the
Yes.
details at another time.
So this is a good start. How
Yeah,
about that?
yeah.
So is it enough of a guts that if you continue to pass on any kind of edits to Sean, he can bring it as an ordinance, we could then
Discuss.
make a motion to advertise possibly at the next meeting? Because I know everybody, this is the whole point of why I took the horns on this, because we just keep talking and never do.
Turn me down 6 times. Don't even start there. Don't even start that conversation.
So,
Anyway,
Okay.
moving on.
Yeah.
I'll have it prepared as a potential resolution for you to.
Ordinance.
Take a motion to add ordinance.
It's getting late.
Okay, next,
So now for some more fun. Let's talk about the resolution that is connected to the ordinance that was tabled this evening. I don't want us to wait too much longer to identify. If you look at the ordinance, the draft ordinance for the parks, establishing the Parks and Rec board. I don't anticipate this part changing. I think it's only the 5-year and 5-member term that's going to change. It establishes that the Board of Supervisors passes a resolution that defines what the Parks and Rec Board's duties will be. Both Sean and I independently poked around E-code 360 to try to find some examples of how other municipalities do it, and we were equally unsuccessful in coming up with anything that would be worthy of us drafting a resolution for you. So it would be important, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong at any of this, with any of this, but it would be helpful for us to hear from the board what your expectations are for the Parks and Rec Board. So then we can then go and craft a resolution for you to consider soon thereafter, once the ordinance is adopted. So I don't have anything for you to look at. It's what do you want the board to do?
And one of the reasons why we don't have anything for you to look at is because I couldn't find anything in any other municipality, at least not in Pennsylvania, that was specifically regarding the duties of a Parks and Rec Board that wasn't already in the ordinance, similar to what you have here,
Well,
Okay.
other than the statute itself. But if it's in the statute, you don't need to define it in a resolution.
No, I was just gonna give him some points.
Well, why don't we agree that we're gonna like, we will get back to Sean and Matt as to what we want to see the Park and Rec Board doing.
I think that would be good if everybody could email me them, then I will compile them. And like at the end of the week, every week, I'll compile them and just forward them to everybody, and just so everybody sees what the list that's moving.
Can I give one example? I'm sorry, since I sit on the Park and Rec Board. One example would be proposal of the turf field that came before them. I would have preferred as a Board of Supervisor for them to have done a little more vetting of the idea, and not just asking questions and getting back that kind of feedback, but to think about, well, where else has this been? Do a little bit more research before they present it to us and just say, yes, we rubber stamp it. I just feel like we could use their expertise, their time and their efforts to help us and our staff think outside of the box or to gather more information about it.
Did the Park and Rec Board actually endorse their field?
So what was my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they came in front of the board of the Park and Rec Board, they said, this is their proposal, had another meeting with all their questions being answered, and they voted on, shall we send this to the Board of Supervisors and say that we think you guys should look into this? Not just saying that they think it's a great idea, pass it on up the line.
so give them a little more expectations of what they're going to do.
Yes, give them a little bit more.
And that may be different than what they've had in the past, but I mean, how far does that go? And
Well, yeah, I guess I have a little bit of a conflict there, because my understanding, talking to my wife, is that they did not approve their field.
Not approved, but they approved to send it on to us.
we can't
Well-
take any conversation between you and your wife because we don't know whether you were really listening to her or.
And also an item like that, it's not up to Park and Rec to decide whether or not we should look at it.
To give us more information, to give us a little more, here are the references that we can give you. Here are some more ideas, rather than just listening to one thing, give us some more information, data, something than just saying landed on our laps and now we have to start from beginning. I just feel like we can use that. I'm just saying as using it as an idea, a jumping off point. We could use them, I think, in a much more greater
Productive,
capacity
yeah.
than we are using them now. And it's how do we use them?
Well, I don't think they have any idea what to do besides what they've been doing for the last 15 years too.
Well,
So,
do we want them cold calling other municipalities and other businesses and other organizations on behalf of the township when they're an advisory board with no real authority? Yeah, I mean, that's what you're proposing, that we're just gonna make anybody that's sitting on an advisory committee somebody who can go and speak out at large on behalf of the township to private entities and or governmental bodies.
I don't think
Okay,
that-
so I'll give you another example.
Well, no,
No, I'll give you another example. It's
I
not so-
agree with that,
Right,
Greg,
that.
but I don't think that's what she's saying. I don't think that they have authority to speak on behalf of the township.
No,
She's saying they should do a little more. A little more investigation, maybe call some of the other sports leagues, maybe call and just say, I'm calling for information. Not to say I'm calling on behalf of the township.
no,
But that's something we have to define to them then.
yes, yes. So my other idea was at the last meeting, some of the board members had suggested. What is going to happen to the garden out the front of the township building? Would the Board of Supervisors be interested in us working on a garden or doing something like that? And to me, I'm thinking that is a perfect example that the Park and Rec Board should be able to work on themselves. Come up with that idea, come up with a plan and say, Board of Supervisors, we would like to work on this. It's part of a park. Would we be able to? And I don't feel like they even feel like they have any chance to put
Well, they
forward
don't-
things
they
like
don't
that
have the
without
direction.
having to ask first.
They don't have the direction, so that's part of the problem, is since they don't know that they can do it. Because
Yes.
it hadn't been done before,
Mhm.
they're asking, well, can it be done?
Yeah, so I'm saying that's one example. Would we be able
Can
to
they?
give them some latitude to work on the parks with the township in small projects?
Well,
What
but
kind of
then,
projects?
so then we have to approve a budget of some sort.
Well,
and
then
then-
they're just gonna work something out. That's their advisory position.
You're laughing, Craig. Why are you laughing?
We're gonna plan out this garden. So they send us a garden with inappropriate plants and a cost that would be, like your company came up with, or the plans I gave to Matt a while back. And we just say, no.
I'll comment if I may. It's your job to tell them, after PA Rush came here, to tell them to go back and work on these 5 things and work them out and then come back and see you. You guys grab everything and want to run with it. They can go 5 times to that. I agree with you, but you have to tell them to go there and you give them direction at that time of what they look at and work with the staff. That's how everybody else does it. They don't go one time. You guys look at development too. The reason I was smiling is because that's what you're doing in development. Petrucci comes in next month. Don't try to fix everything in this meeting. Give your feedback, tell them to go back to planning commission, go to the staff meeting, work it out. You guys got to give direction without getting in the weeds. And she's right, but you have to do, you 5 have to do it. And you have to lead them as a liaison and on that board of how to change the culture. No, sorry, I'm speaking.
No,
No, that's
that's
it's all what you guys have been doing for so long here, and I
Well,
laugh because
we
I
need to
feel
change.
like that land development, like it's all on my shoulders. And you guys, if whatever I say goes, you can challenge me, you can challenge him, you can challenge Matt. But say, hey, I'm not happy with this. Go tell the developer to go back to planning commission and have an engineer meeting with, or a staff meeting with Sean and I, Matt, to work out these 3 things. Don't come back until the sidewalks worked out. You guys, just because we bring it to you. Now, here's the other thing. Other townships do the exact opposite, where they completely let that committee do everything, or staff, and come and present almost like a commissioner's man, and you vote. So, my other account, I do everything and bring the first time you see a big project, the resolution's already prepared by a solicitor. I have input, the staff has input, and you get to see the whole big presentation on Arby's and where it's at. And it's a redevelopment, and you get to see in the whole weekend, read through the conditions, say, okay, I like this, because we generally know what you guys want. But that's the other hands off. Let the committees and the boards run with stuff, but you're right, you got to give them clear direction. They may come back and then send them back again. Like tell PA Rush to go continue working on the maintenance, and they posted, I guess they're getting ready to post escrow, so they want to interact with us, stormwater management. I would have told them, like I told Matt, hey, we did this in Horsham, here's what we use, here's what we did, here's the maintenance issues, everything that you were trying to get to on my end, and then there's other legal things to get to. But I think you guys send people back to wherever planning commission, the board. You can't control zoning here, Russ. The one place you're not gonna win there, but you get sucked into the topic and then you don't stay up here and say, go work that out with staff, go work that out with Park and Rec.
as I was exploring different parks and rec ordinances throughout Bucks County. One thing that jumped out at me too is that parks and rec boards are oftentimes included in the SALDO process. And that they go through and actually instead of just going to the planning commission board. Many of the municipalities that I saw, it showed up in SALDO that they have to go and present to the Parks and Rec Board for parks and recreation amenities solely, and then that recommendation then gets passed on to the board also. So something for the board to also consider.
Same with the EAC. Some EAC ordinances also work with planning commission and with Park and Rec to see if it is really an environmentally sound or fits with what the township would want.
Right.
So, I mean, that's where we can start using our committees and our commissions as a great asset to us. I feel it all comes to us.
And the reason I kind of went off on that was because planning commission, I think, is like that. They're just rubber stamping stuff. They're looking at my letter. They're not, and most of the jobs are small, but the big ones, send the developers to them to work out a lot. But here's the thing, they may go down a path that you're not sure about, and that's where whoever the liaison is needs to kind of guide them a little bit. That's part of the role. And then say, hey, wait a second, maybe we need to stop back at the next board meeting and go over some of these things to see if we're moving in the right direction. So I can tell from planning commission comments over years, they don't feel like they're really just go to the board and, they're going to tell you what to do. And so that seems like the Park and Rec's the same way.
Well, the Park and Rec is that way because they have no authority to do all this stuff.
Near as
That's
planning
what-
commission.
Right.
Planning commission doesn't have the authority either.
Right, and it's always been, they've existed, but they haven't really had any kind of, thing, been told to go actively do this or do that, and just listen to what's presented and send a report in, so we have to change that. So you guys looked on E-code, did you actually call anybody and say, hey, do you have any resolutions or something we couldn't, this, all the resolutions are on E-code?
Ordinances.
Ordinances, yeah.
So some townships do place their resolutions on and searchable. I searched through 2 or 3, at least over the course of 10 years, and couldn't find anything that delineated the specific duties of a Parks and Rec.
Okay. I found when I was looking at this, and I don't ask me where it came up, but somewhere online, I found a proposed resolution for the EAC for Upper Makefield. And it's like 4 pages and it delineates a lot of information. I can scan that and email that to everybody. Upper Makefield. And I don't know whether it was ever it was a proposed or a sample from someplace. So I would think that whatever commission or board you're looking to have process and rules by should probably be the same for most of them. Park and Rec, how they work or whatever. So maybe we just need to make a few phone calls to see how other townships are handling that. But I think we killed that one tonight too. So.
It was in the handbook I had sent out. And it was a resolution.
Okay, sample resolution. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to get back to Matt and Phil with what we want the responsibility for Park and Rec to be, what we want their duties and or responsibilities.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Departmental reports.
They've been included in the meeting packet.
Any questions on the departmental report?
No.
And Chief, have anything that you wanted to add also?
I'll just say thank you for approving the motions on the body worn cameras and color camera systems. Towards getting the modernization and professionalism from the police department. So it's greatly appreciated.
I did want to ask one question. The second grant that you were given from the representatives, was that a surprise or was that something you had already applied for?
We applied for that and the initial awards went out in December.
Okay.
Last year, we were not selected, but they said there would be a relook in March. And I was pleasantly surprised that we got notified that we were awarded the grant.
Congratulations on your grant writing.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for all your hard work in reforming our department, bringing it up to current standards, and you've had a lot of hiring to do and we appreciate your work.
Hey, solicitors report.
The only oral solicitor's report to give this evening is that as you all know, we are now tracking the township's professional services agreement escrow creation. In our report, you'll see that as an addendum to our written report. We're going to keep that updated by month. So as they come in now and they're signed and escrow is made, township staff sends me a copy of that to add to that to make sure that we're tracking it. If there's any specific information that the supervisors wish to include in that index, please let me know so we can add it.
Any questions? Engineers report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have our March engineers report. The only thing I wanted to bring up was that it's not on the report. I just got the call yesterday. Hadn't even looked at the plan that was submitted. So when Matt and I spoke today, I mentioned it, but I didn't even open up the PDF. The Chalfont Motor Lodge is still under agreement of sale with the developer that's next door. I don't know if that original plan ever made it to this board. I know there was a grandiose plan that everybody saw. I think when Matt started, I remember him looking at the first month of
Incorporating both.
they incorporated the apartments and the commercial.
They came to us.
They can't.
Did they get-
Yeah, we saw it, yeah.
So
The 56 townhouses or something like that?
There were, and gave them feedback about the public open space.
right, and they had a commercial. All right, so obviously they're moving forward with, call it phase one. The motor lodge, they've had at least 2 daycares, and that's what they were planning to do anyway. On this commercial part up front on phase one, there's a built pad site. The daycares are all concerned about having a playground back there with what else is back with what's on the neighboring property. So they're having struggle, but it's being brought up in 2 different entities, brought that to the developer. They still have it under agreement of sale. They only contacted me, which I get a lot of these, but I'm at the point where I can't guide anybody. They are willing to remove all the commercial building up front on phase 2. It was a 10,000 square foot building. I'm not saying it's you approved. That's what they came in with. Commercial in the front, townhouses in the back. They're willing to donate, deed restrict, make it a pocket park, almost 2 acres, and get rid of the commercial building, which I think is probably going to go against what some people want on this board, where you're removing the commercial. That's the office park. That's not commercial district. There's a zoning boundary there. So it's zoned office park. You asked Mr. Riley to look into even the adjacent property. There's a pad site behind the TD Bank and, well, actually not TD Bank, the little strip mall there. He's willing to negotiate, but the guy's asking a ton of money. But that has been sitting there vacant for office building for how long? I mean,
20 plus years.
yeah, well, maybe, yeah, about that. They don't want to build another office building in the office park and have the same thing. They're willing to take that whole front a little less than 2 acres. And we can do a park, we can keep it green. He understands that you cut down all the trees, you know.
I was just gonna say, it's a shame he didn't come in with this, kept some of the farm.
Hold on, I didn't get to the good part.
Yeah.
Hold on, in exchange for keeping 50 townhomes in the back, as he originally came in with.
No.
But we could take it as a parcel, they'd subdivide it, we could deed restrict it, we could do whatever we want with it. I get calls about townhouses, I was talking about today, every month, a broker, realtor, developer, engineer. If you're willing to listen, they'd be more than happy to come at least get some temperature, but I told them the townhouses were, you're not gonna rezone that motor lodge for townhouses, at least at the 50, I think they're at 52. I think at one point we talked about, I think someone mentioned on the board about reducing the density, so they said they're not gonna reduce the density, they could take off the commercial, so. If your answer still is in general, townhouses, no, then I'm just gonna continue to,
Yeah. Well, yeah, my theory is we don't have that much commercial space in this township, and that's prime commercial space right there.
it's not zoned for commercial, that's the only.
I know, it's zoned for
Just
office
that
park,
property.
right? But it's certainly not zoned for residential either.
Yeah, nope, it's
Yep.
not. So, The reason you have the townhouse behind the overlook and now it's called Birch Run, so
They gave it a name.
they finally gave it a name, was because that was part of the mixed use. So that is the only reason why there is residential there.
Right.
So, okay. That's fine. And the other comment I had just to think about as we have other projects coming up. Matt and I were discussing stormwater and this ties into other things we talked about tonight about stormwater improvements in the township and where we could get some funding, road program as well. I'd like to try to see if some of these developments coming in, we could maybe work on capital improvement funding. They're asking for certain waivers. I think back in the day, we used to do that a lot. We've kind of gotten away from that. Seems like the Park and Rec Fund is really building up based on all our new ordinances. But if it's okay with you, I'd like to start when I have a discussion with the engineers and developers and any waivers that they're considering, maybe guide them into either they're doing the improvements or contributing fees that we could put together and look at fixing a stormwater problem in the township that you don't have the funding for. Other townships do that. As we get the funding, then we work on a plan for what projects we could, get approved, and that would come through you, a kind of priority list. But we got to start somewhere. We used to have, you get fees in and they have to be directed to stay and not used each year and try to build those funds up. So same thing with the road program, that way you can start doing more. Maybe not in that one area, but if it's tied to a waiver, you can use those funds anywhere. Park and Rec, you have to stay within the region. Your Park and Rec fund is quite high. And it's going to keep climbing with all the development coming in. So if that's okay with you, then as developments come, as plans come through, and there's several waivers. It's better if you guys ask for that than Sean and I. But and if you would like that, then we'll negotiate those fees.
I think that, to interrupt Craig, but I mean, this came about from a conversation Craig and I were having today, just about how we can start getting ahead of these significant investments that we're going to be up against. We're talking about curbs and sidewalks. I think that's what started the curbs issue, and then stormwater management and stormwater concerns, and it's not going away, and it's going to be a recurring theme. And so, Craig and I were brainstorming. Craig had these really good ideas of, hey, how can we leverage future developments to help us start offsetting this in the future?
Especially when you're rezoning properties, it's okay if you're rezoning, if county builders is paying, $5,000 a unit to Park and Rec. It didn't have to be that. That's what was negotiated or discussed back then. Maybe we could have split that up a little bit. There's older projects where there's stipulation settlement agreements where it says, so much money goes to the capital improvement fund. Well, where we need to start earmarking that, I think, for stormwater and road improvements more. I think and remember, every time you have a tree fee, that also goes, I think, into Park and Rec. Is that where the tree fees go? Matt and I weren't sure, but so we got to look into that too. So maybe that trees are still part of stormwater management. The DEP, that's something that you can still. And then that goes to where Cynthia was going about. There's certain projects you can use those funds that still meet certain stormwater requirements. Doesn't have to be just planting trees in the park, which is what you used to do. Everybody did 50 years ago. So just keep that in mind. And as development comes through, I think everybody's nodding their heads. I'll start guiding them a little bit that way. All right. So I have.
What are supervisor comments?
You always start down this end. Okay, so I did want to bring forward the Park and Rec idea that they would like to be involved in helping out, doing something different to the front garden. I know that the Public Works starts putting new flowers in there in preparation for 4th of July, and that's about it. Would the board be open, since we have a meeting tomorrow night, to have a discussion about what they would think about, and would you be interested in it?
Yes.
Yeah, are they coming up with a plan, or are they coming up with a plan and planting the flower?
They would like to plant. They would like to be involved. Sorry, they would like to be involved in the project.
We've got plans. They could look at, I gave them to Matt, the one from your company that was done, and the one from the original plan from the building was built. Which wasn't actually done. So, yeah.
Well, would that be open, would the board members be open to that, for us to have a look at those plans maybe tomorrow night and see if there's something that they would like to help with?
I have no problem with it.
Sure. Great.
Okay. Cool.
And we did add money. I'm looking here, I don't know what the number is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We did include money in this year's budget for that landscaping project, so I can get that number of what we budgeted, and that can help.
And plenty of ways of finding some freebies.
The number that sticks in my head is 15, but I want to go back and parse out what's in there.
$15.
15,000 for that front garden.
Well, no, if they're just doing gardening, no, I certainly don't, but if it's.
That was for.
No,
Landscaping.
like if we were gonna do a bigger plan and everything, we put enough money in there that we could significantly look at it.
We have a ton of people that'd be happy to do a plan for free. Don't worry about paying
Well-
someone to do a plan. We already have 2 paid plans.
He's saying he has a plan
Projects right this
that
side,
to
this is-
implement the plan. They have the
Yeah.
$15,000.
It was for everything involved.
Yes.
Just to make
Okay.
sure we had plenty of money there for that.
And the veterans area, that
Well, that could go.
place out there with the fire plug is usually just a weed field, which is kind of a disgrace next to our veterans memorial. So,
It used to be done years ago.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anybody that wanted to continue doing it for that.
mention that to the veterans committee too. Anyway, so that's great. I'm for it.
Okay. You?
That's it.
I just thank you to our staff for doing what they're doing, and that's all I can remember at this point.
Getting
It's
No,
my bedtime now.
no, I don't.
Greg?
Do?
Okay, I have nothing at this time. I brought up enough trouble with this. Okay,
That should be great.
any public comment? Anybody still awake out there?
This-
Right,
so these
people
are
online
the-
that
these
know
are
if there's
conditional
anything.
use. It's just.
Okay.
This can go.
Announcement. The next meeting of the Board of Supervisors meeting will be on April 3rd. 10 a.m. at the Township building. And tonight's meeting is recorded and will be on the website. And the minutes will follow up some point after that. Any other questions? There are no other announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.